I guess we can't get away from doing an interview without commenting on what is currently happening in Ukraine. And as is usual for the past year or so, everything is clear as mud. And I guess a lot of people are frustrated that there hasn't really been any change, and what Putin started a year ago or even more now is still continuing. And there's no shortage of people prognosticating or warning or threatening or making statements about what they think his strategy is and what he'll do next. Basically, my feeling is that he won't do anything different next. He'll just keep doing what he is doing, and has been doing for the last 6 to 9 months. Just keep everything boiling, because frankly, he has no exit strategy. And I've said this before. He made a calculated gamble that he could conquer eastern Ukraine using similar methods to what he used in Crimea, and it hasn't worked. He's managed to grab a chunk of territory in Donetsk and Luhansk, but now he's up against the wall that the resistance has stiffened. The Ukrainian government, the Ukrainian military has been able to keep his forces in check, and he really doesn't know what to do next. So he'll just keep, waiting, keep on the same strategy, this hybrid war, keeping things unstable, generating, casualties, destruction, whatever, just to keep the pot boiling until something happens. I guess he's looking for a break, spotting a weakness. He's been trying to break up the European alliance that's imposing all these sanctions on him. Hasn't been successful at doing that. He'll keep, chipping away at that armor to hoping that he'll get somewhere. But frankly, I think this stalemate is just going to continue until one of several things happen. It's very obvious that the Russian economy is suffering, and it will suffer even more. It will, I think, lead to some instability in Russia, and I think it's the strategy of the NATO forces. It's the strategy of the U.S. Actually, I shouldn't say U.S. It's the strategy of Obama, because he's the one that's driving it. I think he probably feels that he can wear Putin down. He can erode the Russian economy, erode the confidence of the Russians to the point where they depose Putin, and he's probably guessing that is feasible within the next 6 to 12 month time frame. And he's going to continue on the way. It's not going to escalate, unless Putin escalates, and he's just going to kind of make sure that Putin's butting his head against the wall until Putin fails. Either he's deposed, killed, whatever happens. And it's probably a reasonable approach. The big problem I have with that, and with the approach of NATO and the European Union as a whole, is that it's a very reactive strategy, very reactive policy. They're waiting to see what Putin does next, and then they do something. Whereas I think that they would have a much better chance and probably effect real positive change much, much more quickly if they were proactive rather than reactive. Like, rather than, wait until Putin escalates and seizes another chunk of territory, and then they put more sanctions on, and if he escalates it further, put more sanctions on. They should do the opposite. They should basically force the issue and tell Putin, you've got 3 months to withdraw your armaments and your troops from eastern Ukraine, or we will escalate the sanctions. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. You still don't do it, next 3 months, we raise the bar even further. That way, force Putin to react rather than the West always reacting to what he will do next. So it's time to push back. And I think if they start doing that and do it on an aggressive scale, say basically, withdraw your heavy armaments from Donetsk, Luhansk by, July 30th or August 30th, or we will impose another quantum jump of sanctions. If this hasn't happened by September 30th, it will escalate still further. And just keep upping the ante, until he basically realizes that, he's not going to get anywhere further, and he's going to cut his losses. So I would much prefer a proactive type strategy rather than the kind of reactive, let's see what he does next, and depending on what he does, we'll decide what we will do. And obviously it takes them months to decide, to bring the allies and the coalition into play. It's playing into Putin's strengths, and actually we should be challenging his weakness by, the West being the proactive, challenging him to react in some way. Because, either Putin is a madman or he's a very shrewd man. If he's a very shrewd man, he's going to eventually cut his losses. If he is a madman, then God help us all. But, you know, are we going to drag this out another couple of years, or are we going to resolve this once and for all, you know, in the near future?